Christian for the longest time. I started here in Zambia at a very basic level as a peer educator, actually. But very quickly, some people noticed, people like Fodson Kafweku, Mike Montel, now the president of Living Water, as well as Dr. Kwasi Nimo, they noticed that I had a natural gift of speaking. And prior to that, Dr. Manasseh had really been mentoring me and encouraging me, late Dr. Manasseh Piri with his wife, Chilufia Mwabe Piri. So when World Vision US discovered that I had those abilities, today we call it public speaking, you know, they really took advantage of that, and they also developed me that I became more professional in my speaking. I began to fundraise not only in the US, in Canada, in Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Ireland, and many other places. But because World Vision is a Christian non-profit organization, there was a leaning towards the Christian religion. And so I would find myself, of course, speaking to people like George Bush, the famous meeting in the Oval Office. But also I did a lot of schools, and then there was a lot of emphasis on engaging the church, especially around HIV and AIDS. So it was inevitable that I almost felt like I fitted naturally into preaching, but I also felt confined in a chapel setting or in a church setting. So they started saying, maybe you belong to the big C, meaning being the church outside. So I knew that I am a humanitarian at heart, so that is why I had to add the non-profit master's administration, and then of course the divinity. Really, for me, religion has evolved, and I believe that it is more of the ethos, that it helps me to understand that God is just, and that justice for the poor, and to speak for the vulnerable and the voiceless. And so for me, the divinity degree or master's degree has really helped me to realize that in this world, when we are put in different positions at different times, we are there to be stewards and not to be take it all, but to say, what would you have me do, especially for those who may be easily neglected, those who are marginalized in society. And I believe that that is what true Christianity is all about. But I also want to caution, and that is why many of the times I don't use that as a cop out, because in the same vein, we have to be held responsible to good governance. We have to be held responsible to no tolerance to corruption. And this has become a cancer in our country. We have to advocate for women in leadership. And when I mean women, I'm not just talking just because the sex is a female, but women who have the capacity and the caliber. But also we cannot only demand that out of the women, we have to demand the same from our men folks, because many are the times when people are having conversations around women in leadership, you hear them say, well, do we have the right women? Do we have the educated women? But we don't seem to ask the same question over the male folks. So I think the standard has to be the same. And I personally, I do have respect for the male folks, but I also believe that when you find the right female leaders, they will do great things and great wonders, because we are natures and we are doers. And I hope that 2021 will prove to have more women so that we can shape our country in the right direction.
Okay. I'm going to ask this because the United Party for National Development, in terms of the highest organ in the party, is, you know, pushing the agenda of equality in terms of the male and female folk. In Zambia, we've made several attempts to do this, but not really getting there. And in Parliament, we're nowhere near 50% representation. What do you think has largely contributed to this fact, especially that there is this saying that you, women, do not vote for one another?
I think it has changed. And I think KEMBE constituency is a casing point. I'm so proud of the people I call KEMBians. You know, I love them with all my heart because I do believe that when my time came, my predecessor, whom I have respected dearly, Honorable Shikapwasha, General Shikapwasha, I think the women in particular, they said, we want a woman. We have had men since 2016, and they have done their best to the level that they could. And they said, we want a woman. And it was coming from the women folks, but also it was coming from the male folks. So for me, I feel that is a signal. That is a signal that the future of women is now. It's no longer tomorrow or whenever that is. I think 2021, my encouragement to all parties, including my party that I belong to, the UPND, is that we be deliberate in finding those suitable women who can win the seat. Unfortunately, we do not have instruments that make it mandatory or where parties are forced. But I think when you look at our constitutions, we are beginning to get there. And so my encouragement also is to the women to say, come on, you don't need to know it all. I think sometimes as women, we wait until we become professional. We wait until we feel comfortable. But when I look at the male folks, they have a tendency to jump into things when they don't even understand, you know. And so I think my encouragement is the women folks is that jump in. You don't have to know it all. I'm a good example. I am a humanitarian. You know, of course, fundraising. And for the longest time, I did a lot of work in Zambia, but I also did a lot of work outside the country. Find your niche, find some mentors, and do not be scared not to know it all. I think for me that's critical. But secondly, I think it is important to add that mentoring is very critical. And that is why for me personally, because I do not have any pedigree, you know, I'm the first in my family to become a politician and to become a member of parliament. So it's huge. It's a great success. But I don't want to be the first. I think we as women, and we need to realize that it's no longer sexy or attractive to be the first. I think we are demanding that women given the opportunity, and that is why as UPND, you have seen that our vice president, she's a female. Of course, the president of Zambia, also the vice president, I should say, is a female. But I think it's in all spheres, and it shouldn't just be in parliament, it has to be at the local level of governance. It has to be in the conversations. You know, sometimes it is sad when you are having these indabas, for example, in Lenje Tulambai, kafuali wunge wunge, whereby sometimes you're even discussing issues that concern women. It's the men who are answering on behalf of the women. So I am deliberate to say, hey, come on, can you contribute? And I'm so glad that those men that surround me are also very quick to say, meaning you women, she's a female, can you now be free? And I think it's a matter of encouraging our women, but I think also it is having mentors and also have people who can support you financially, because at the end of the day, you are going to need finances. And I find men to be very supportive, you know, as long as it's genuinely just for that. I think women should take it up because the future is now. It is the present.
In 2018, you made a particular statement. Appear failure to release CDF implement policies has killed farmers in constituencies. Central Province is an area where there's, you know, relatively good rainfall. It's known for its productivity. Anybody driving to the Copper Belt or to Lusaka, depending on which way you're going, will find, you know, women selling and men by the roadside. The aspect of the Constituency Development Fund has been very problematic in the country. We've had certain years, for example, in 2018 itself, where only 132 constituencies received the funding, 24 were left out. How problematic has this been throughout your tenure of office?
Well, it has been problematic because right now as I speak, the CDF for 2020 for KEMBE constituency and Chibombo district, because KEMBE belongs to Chibombo district, and there we have two constituencies, Katuba as well as KEMBE constituency. It was only yesterday the councillors were calling me to say, can you follow up with the Minister of Local Government again to ensure that the projects which we had applied for are approved. Now, this is 2021, and unfortunate, to your point, the inconsistency of CDF, which is supposed to be by law, be given yearly, has been a problem. And there's also been a tendency by the executive to point everything to CDF. Now, sorry, let's keep change when you look at KEMBE constituency. When you look at Kasempa, you look at Kapiri, I'm sure there are other provinces where the PF are more prominent. I think the idea that CDF is not released every year is a tragedy to this country. Secondly, the fact that a constituency such as KEMBE constituency, Chisamba, Katuba, which other constituencies big, I know of Kasempa, are getting the same amounts as those constituencies in Lusaka, where there are so many commercial businesses, where the roads have been done, when in KEMBE, I'm still struggling with the Landres Mumbwa Road, which has stalled, which was started by BY. If some people may not even know who BY is. BY Mwil, I think he was. Yes. And that road has still stalled. Only 34 kilometers are remaining. I had the opportunity to see President Lungu, and he promised that that road would be completed. Well, that was 2017 in the farming season, and here we are. So when you talk of Central Province being an agriculture area, a farming belt, it's unfortunate. It is a shame that we continue to see that the road infrastructure is poor. When I talk of the Landres Mumbwa Road, I'm not just advocating for the Kembians or the people of KEMBE. It will open up those who are coming from Mumbwa, from Western Province. It will open up to the farmers that want to bring their produce to Lusaka. It will open up to people coming from Lusaka, going maybe to the Copper Belt. This is a very strategic road. It's an economic road. So it boggles my mind to see that. We're not saying you shouldn't do roads in Lusaka, but when you look at the flyover bridges or the viaducts all over the place, you begin to wonder where our priorities. I think as a country, I continue arguing that we do have the money. It is the misuse and the misappropriation of funds in this country. And so you find that an area such as Central Province, which is strategically located, which should be feeding the nation, which should be striving in terms of multi-facility zones, is struggling. Right now, as I speak to you, KEMBE constituency needs to be declared as a disaster, national disaster. And I speak for KEMBE constituency, but there are parts even in Katuba where the floods have taken over. As I speak to you today, we have had lives lost. The first 2 lives were little boys in Chitanda constituency, in Chitanda, Chief Chitanda area, because I've got 2 chiefs in KEMBE constituency. 2 sweet little boys, age 9 about, they died. Because the bridge that has been built under the World Bank has been washed away. This is a bridge that was only began to be done a few months ago. Then you have a man who died in Chikobo Ward. Then you have another man who was using the Petratrine. He just sank in Chibombo. So you see that lives are being lost, cattle is being lost, and some cars have submerged. When you talk of houses, you have over 200 houses, maybe even more now, which the houses have been washed away. The maize fields you're talking about, where we have the pride as the Lenje people, as Benemukuni, the people of KEMBE constituency, that we can feed not only ourselves, but we can find some kind of income to take our children to the best schools, to go to the right hospitals. Well, it's not going to be there. And DMMU, its efforts are not reaching the people. Either it have become so overwhelmed, and also there is the political hand, which is unfortunate because DMMU is not supposed to be politicized. We went with the DMMU team. which I was grateful for in Chief Chitanda area. We went to the Makoka area. We were taught about the Luwundi area. And now this area of floods have expanded to Malambanyama. In Malambanyama ward, it has expanded to Lunjofwa. In Lunjofwa ward, it has expanded in KEMBE ward. It is happening in Kakuma ward. It's happening in Chaloshi, in Chikobo. It's happening in Chibombo. And yet, the first response they gave, those who were tasked to take the little relief that was given, they were asking for voters' card. What in God's name has the voters' card got to do with relief that is given to the people who are under disaster? So I think this needs to be investigated. We totally understand that this is a political...
Have you filed in reports to that effect?
Well, the reports were just coming actually as I was coming, because my way of leadership is I can't always be on the ground, but I call the people on the ground. I call my councillors, I call the headmen, and I call the people that are my contacts. And just now I said, what is it that you want people to know about KEMBE constituency? Because I'm not going to come here and sit as if I go around the whole entire 12 wards every other week. And I'm one of those MPs who visit her constituency almost on a weekly basis, but I still can't reach those places. So the report of the relief that was given to the people in Chief Chitanda being used for political mileage is moral bankruptcy. And it is totally wrong. And I think DMMU and the Vice President, they need to look into this, because at the end of the day, they are the one in charge of the resources of this nation, the resources of the Zambians. So it is my hope that come this week, I did speak to Honorable Mushanga, who is the Central Province Minister. We are following up with him, with my councillors and some of the headmen, to really say, what do we need to do? Because the people are now sleeping in classrooms. COVID is still alive and well. These are the dangers.
So what you've said here is you've not yet filed in a report, because these reports have just come to you now. So as we speak, this is unsubstantiated by yourself. It's just by word of mouth that you've, spoken about this. Is this a regular feature of your leadership style, sometimes to talk about things even before, verifying them yourself?
Verification means you have spoken to people. In a rural setting, what does verification mean? It means you get the information from the source.
It may be false.
No, not at all. But what is important, though, it is for DMMU to follow up. And what I'm telling you, yes, in terms of the voter registration part, that is new. But in terms of politicizing the relief, that we have gotten for some months now, because I think that relief was done in, was that February, early February? And this has been a complaint. When we reported the cases of Chief Chitanda area, there were strictly relief programs for the Chief Chitanda area. But you find that people in KEMBE ward, which was under Chief Liteta before the floods came, some of them were benefiting. Mutoyakuli, we are going to this meeting. What is happening? We are being given maize. We are being given this relief. How are you getting the relief that was never supposed to be given to you? I think what is important to underscore here is that when your members of parliament bring issues, they are literally speaking on behalf of the people. They are not the police. They are not at a community level, in terms of the local level, like the district commissioners. But I think when we speak, we do not just speak out of malice. We are speaking for the people. That is our job. At the end of the day, Palais is to speak. And you do well to speak what the views of the people are. I'll give you an example. In Chikobo ward, out of the 1,170, beneficiaries of FISIP, 1,170 beneficiaries of FISIP, I can tell you that about 60% of those farmers, not including the traditional farmers, they have lost their crops. So it is important then for the district administration officer, the DAO and the DACO, who is the district agriculture coordinating officer, to then go on the ground And unfortunate, because of the flood situation, sometimes even the officers themselves are having a challenge. I've been in touch with DMMU from the province up to the Lusaka people here. And I think what we are saying, let's not play the blame game. Let's respond to the needs of the people. That is all I care about.
Okay.
They need tents. They need relief food. They need to ensure that those who are now started to go to sleep in classrooms, we find better shelter for them in places like Kakoma Ward. I know it is overwhelming. Right now, as we speak, on Monday, I was in Chibombo myself from Saturday to Monday. You saw that the water levels are so high, the pit latrines have become a disaster. And no wonder why the other gentleman died. So really, I think we all have a role. And unfortunate, I'm part of the governance, whether I like it or not. Even though I come from opposition, and I don't have any money to give my people. But what I do have is the voice. And that is what they voted me for. And that is what I'll continue to do. And that's what we need to do. However, those who are running DMMU, I am appealing to former PS of Kabwe, who knows KEMBE constituency very well, Chanda Kabwe. We're talking of people like Felix Mangwato, who is also part of the directors at DMMU, and we have our Lady Martha in Kabwe, as well as the district commissioner. When these relief things come, let them not go to Chibombo. Let them go right to the people that is intended for. And then those who are agriculture extension officers, the DACO, the DAO, do your job, difficult as it is. Let's give the people what's due to them. Politics will come on 12 August, or when the campaign starts. But until then, you are in charge of the resources of the Zambian people, and the people of KEMBE in particular are suffering because of the floods.
So the UPND last year and the year before that, we heard, cries from the UPND to the effect that, government needed to declare Southern Province a disaster, a national disaster, because of the hunger that was there. You yourself have now said that, KEMBE ought to be declared a national disaster. A person who's looking at things from, the terraces would say, well, I'm seeing a trend with the UPND to quickly talk about these areas being declared national disasters. Do you not trust the people in administration to know when to declare a national disaster?
So what is important to underscore is that though we have different roles, there are those in the executive, there are those at local governance level. There are also members of parliament who are part of the DMMU actually. But unfortunately, depending on the personality you're dealing with, your office may be sidelined. I'm just telling you of the relief that came, some relief, which my office was not informed about. Okay, so you find that this problem of working in silos, this problem of looking at each other because you're from opposition and you're from ruling party, at the end of the day, like they say, that when the elephants are fighting, guess who suffers the most?
It's the grass.
It's the grass. And what I am bringing to the conversation is, can we have relief go to the intended people? Now, why declare it a national disaster? I think if my understanding serves me right, you hope that there will be an agency that is attached to the situation. There will also be maybe other well-wishers that will come in to help. That is the hope, But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It is those that are in the executive to do what is right. I have told my people, go to the DC's office, go to the DACO's office, go to DAO, but you have done well to report, and I will engage the minister, which I did. We just lost our senior chief, Mukuni Ngombe, Chief Chipepo, may his soul rest in peace, and we were burying him on Tuesday. We were seated with the minister. I raised these issues, which he is aware, and promised to look into it. But at the end of the day, I'm only good as a member of parliament as much as I can speak. Really, that's about it. You don't have a budget to respond to floods. But the people on the ground, you are their savior, for lack of a better word. And so you are crucified even for things that has nothing to do with what you are able to. So it is not a pattern for UPND. It is a cry to say, look, there is a disaster. If you went today, I don't know how, if you saw the clips, if you have been on social media, you will see the clips from KEMBE constituency. It's a sad reality. At Lunjofwa area is where Chief Chitanda connects with Chief Liteta, because I have 2 chiefs in my constituency. You cannot cross because the bridge has been washed away. So you have to get on a transport, which is becoming very expensive for the locals, and you have to drop at Lunjofwa, find some ways of canoe or walking if the waters are not that heavy in terms of their current, and then you get on another vehicle. Now, this is what? This is 2021. This is how primo some of our people are still living. So I don't mean to politicize, but it's the plight of our people. And I hope that if the people in Chivombo are listening right now, those in the offices, the minister, really come to the aid of the people of KEMBE constituency and some parts of Katuba as well.
Okay, so in terms of, because this is an election year, obviously, how do you think that this helps your cause for re-election purposes? Do you think that this is a good enough message for you to say, look, these people have not been helpful. Give me another, 5 years and we will fight harder? Or do you think this, makes you look bad to the people in your constituency in terms of, well, we gave you 5 years and you haven't delivered to date?
Yeah. I think it would be premature to rate one's performance on floods. Unfortunately, they are happening,
yes,
and they're getting worse. And they can go either way.
Yeah.
Those who may be knowledgeable enough on how government run, who knows that the coffers and the response is in the hands of the executive. It's there for them to judge. That means it is the executive that will fail them, not the member of parliament. However, for me, I feel very confident that I have done more than what I could for the people of KEMBE constituency.
Let's get to that. What is it exactly that you feel you have done for the people of KEMBE?
Okay, so one of the things that I ran on in 2016, I told them clearly that I was coming to promote programs. I wasn't coming to capacitate people. And it is sad to see a country where we have become so low as leaders, where if you give a 20 kwacha or 100 kwachas now for those who have the money, and people go feeling like, well, I got something and you're going to vote for that person. Well, then that is wrong. I was clear when I was coming in that I am going to be an advocate, because that is my background. I'm in advocacy, I've been HIV positive for a long time, fundraising for HIV and orphans and vulnerable children. So it's a natural fit for me to use that very strength of my personality or of my experience as an advocate. So what I have done, I've engaged a lot of partners. I've engaged NGOs like Living Water that has done almost 270 water sources, that be boreholes or those which were broken down and refurbishing them. I've engaged organizations such as Fountain of Life Africa that has built schools, and I mean schools. I think there are around 10 schools since I came, and they have done clinics, and they'll just be doing a hospital in Chief Chitanda area. These are just a non-governmental organization. There's been World Vision as well, which is the organization I worked for. So I have taken advantage of my connections, so to speak. And then, of course, being a person who has been fortunate to live in Zambia and abroad, I have also been able to take advantage of those relationships. We have missions that come, they do checkups for eyes, they do medical checkups. We have partners of churches, they come and do whatever it can be. But I do not end there. What I would detest, though, is where sometimes people in the executive would tell you, oh, you need to come and almost beg from them. That's not leadership. They are the ones who should even be reaching out to us and say, I know in KEMBE you need this. How can we go about it? That is your role. And then this idea that those in the executive, including the president, can come to KEMBE and say, because she's opposition, then you won't see development. Zambians, you need to say no to that, because that is a lullaby that shouldn't be accepted. When any party is in leadership, when they're in the executive, looking at a region or at a constituency with the party view has to stop. And that is why I think the president, Hakainde Hichilema, his view is that when he comes into power in 2021, which we are believing, is that we are going to take development to the whole country, and it will not be a one-sided kind of allocation. It has to be to the whole country, because you have friends in Wapula, you have friends in Eastern Province. One of my very closest friends in Parliament, may his soul rest in peace, was just the recent late Ngonga, Maxwell Ngonga. We were in Washington, where we did some programs on the anti-tobacco bill. You wouldn't know that we are coming from opposite parties. But that is the Zambia we want. And this political contrast of dividing people based on tribe, based on regions, based because you're not in UPND, we in PF, we chose democracy ourselves as Zambians. I remember in 1991 dancing, literally, where we felt we have come this far, we want democracy. What does democracy mean then? It diverges views. It means others will belong to the ruling and others are going to belong to the opposition. But when you're given the mandate in the executive, as a president, it means you become blind. You should become blind to the party lines and bring development where it's supposed to be. So for me, I believe that education has been a critical legacy issue for me. We have sponsored children in universities. We have found them scholarship through higher education, some of them, but some of them have been carried on by individuals. We have helped people become teachers. We have helped some students become nurses, and many other things. We have gone flat out into communities. My only hope is I find a way to meet our elderly people. Because I believe that somehow, especially as younger people, we so neglect the elders, the seniors. I don't know, Zambia's senior from what, 60? Or maybe 65, 70?
Well, let's put it at the retirement age.
Okay.
65.
Well, they may not have worked, but 65 going
senior.
up. I believe we owe them so much. I owe them so much. I miss the days when I would sit by the fire and you're hearing to this wisdom of these older people. And I think in today's world, we have kind of lost it. And I think even in our programming sometimes, I do more things for the youths. Of course, they're going to play, it may not be an empowering program, but even recreation, for example, soccer, netball. But where are my older people? And so I'm going back, trying to do more for the older people, and they can be men, they can be women, and also, our headmen, they need to understand that though they themselves may not be that active in politics, they have a role to ensure that we protect this peaceful Zambia, because peace is a commodity that if you do not trade with it carefully, you can lose it. And I think we are at a crossroads as Zambians where we really need to speak against tribal remarks that are very divisive. We need to speak against any political leader who come in the name of these, those. That is what creates civil wars, and no one should look at that.
Just speaking to that, what do you think that the UPND, the party to which you belong, is tagged as being tribal?
I thought its PF was tribal. I'm surprised to hear that you are using the tribal tag on UPND. But either way, it shouldn't be. Because you know what? Mbasela, I don't know what tribe you are, but I've got an uncle by that name, Mbasela. You find that a lot of names that we have, they may be Emwewa in Chiwombo, they may be Emwewa in Northwestern Province. And the intermarriages speaks to that.
Yeah.
I'm a Zulu by marriage, okay? So you may think I'm an Easterner, but I'm Lamba, Kaonde, and Lenje, and Ila on the other side. So when you look at the way Zambians, and this is where I give credit to the father of this nation, the fathers and the mothers actually, which we don't talk much about, they saw the need that we intermarried. They saw the need that we were one Zambia, one nation. Unfortunate, the politicians, we the politicians, are using it to our advantage. And when the illiteracy levels are so high, as it is in our country, unfortunate, it's very easy to work on people's minds, and they begin to believe that this is the reality. But if you came to parliament, you will find that most of the members of parliament are colleagues. There's that collegiality. So where is this coming from, where people now start beating up people? Now look at that woman who sells at Hoodlands.
Yeah.
A UPND staunch member who is just proud to be a UPND has been beaten several times. What are we doing? Yes, some few people may leave this country at free will, but guess what? Now there's COVID. They may even stop you to go to another country. I may have the opportunity to fly out, but will I take my whole extended family? I won't be able to. That is why, for me, I preach peace. I preach that we should never take for granted the unity that we have enjoyed. When you look at some of the people in the northern, they're married to people in south, and the south are married in the north, and elsewhere. So where are we getting this? And I think as you as journalists also have a responsibility. You know, I'm a broadcaster by background. And I remember being in Canada, and one of the interviewers said, you know what is the job of a journalist? Good journalism is to inflict the comfortable ones, especially those in power, and to comfort the weak and the neglected and the marginalized. I thought, wow, that is profound. So don't just leave it to the politicians. You have a responsibility as journalists. You have a responsibility as an individual, as young men. Why don't you say no to the violence? But if we continue condoning it, as someone said, where are the children of the politicians whom you're fighting for? Are they part of the gangsters? Of course not. And if we create a gang culture in this country, it's over. So we shouldn't go there. I keep saying, let's not drink from the poisonous chalice, which other countries have drunk from. I think people have begun to realize that wisdom is not learning from your mistakes. It is learning from other people's mistakes. And that is my hope for this country.
The UPND has, since formation, lost several elections. There's been also a plethora of vice presidents, in the UPND. And this, for some people has looked like your party leader, Hakainde Hichilema, is a very difficult man to work with. And this, to some people, hasn't sat very well with them. What is the strategy? Because you said that you believe that you are winning 2021. What is different about this brand of UPND that you believe so much that you're going to form government? And as you do that, why should it be the UPND?
Well, first of all, we have been tested as UPND. Show me another opposition party that is tested as UPND. Okay? And should I say the incoming party forming government. Secondly, I think it's unfortunate that people have labeled President Hakainde Hichilema as a difficult person, whatever labels you have made. I always ask people a question. Even you, Mr. Mbasela, if you have a running tummy, will you go to a lawyer or you go to a doctor? It's a simple question, isn't it? Who will you go to?
It's a doctor, obviously.
Okay, if you have a case against the law, will you go to the doctor or you go to the lawyer?
You go to the lawyer.
This country is in problems, economical problems. If you are anywhere, even in the diaspora, you will know by the time you send your US dollars that this is not how much US dollars we used to send. But that's not the conversation because that's high level. The people on the ground, just early November, cement in this country was 94 kwacha. One bag of cement, 32.5 R or N. Today, that same bag of cement is 140 kwacha. Cooking oil, which is one of the basic commodities. How much was a 2.5 liters? It was less than 100. Today, it's about 120. In short, everything has skyrocketed. Now, you tell me, and this is where sometimes people say, oh, you're not packaging your message right. What message do you want, apart from the fact that you are struggling? If I get the 1,000 kwacha today, the buying power of that 1,000 kwacha is not the same as it were, not even last year, but more importantly, 2 years ago. Me, I explain things in a basic form. Sugar, how much are you buying the sugar? Those are the issues that we Zambians need to interrogate. And I have argued, Mr. Mbasela, that this is not HH's battle. This is not Princess Kasune's battle. This is your battle. Especially our youths, our mothers, our people in towns, people in Lusaka. You cannot go and vote and you go to bed and say, we'll hear the results tomorrow. 2021's election, you're supposed to wait until they announce. Wherever you are, you become the what do you call, polling agent in a way. You cannot leave it to the rule of people to be voting. I am begging all Zambians, because of what you're going through, bring change to this country. Because if Zambians do not do that, well, hard luck. And there'll be no point of return. So I think the PF have an opportunity. How many months more to go? Is it 3? Well, Parliament rises in May, on the 12th, I think. And then you have June, July, August. So we're talking about maybe 5 months. But if you are happy with the status quo, then why change? Why rock the boat that you're comfortable with? But if you know too well that feeding your children has become difficult, what message do you want me to package? And the truth is, in Africa, in Zambia, you don't have the big difference in terms of what you call it, constitutions or even the policies that you come up. It's about poverty because you're still a developing country. You know, it's different politics in the U.S. where some are pro-life and some are, pro-choice and things like that. They have developed to that extent. And this idea of us comparing ourselves to the West countries needs to stop. When you begin to ask difficult questions, good leadership welcomes criticism, and I mean positive criticism. I want to be criticized, of course, positively. But when you say something, then people will be like, well, you're talking like that. In other countries, they don't even talk. Why do you want to compare yourself to the West performing countries? I think Zambia, at the age of what, is it 56 or 55, or where are we? My math. Since 1964, you're still talking of only 30 women in parliament. That's not good. I think let's critique ourselves and let's improve. So I believe that one of the reasons why you want President Hakainde Hichilema to be your president is because he is the one that will fix your economy. That is his expertise. And I think President Lungu has done his part. You know what? If I was him, I wouldn't even run again. But I guess he has the choice to run. So I think where we are as a country, do not look at someone's face. Whether they smile, they don't smile. So what if I smile? Am I competent to run your economy? Let's become meritocratic, where we look at someone's capacity. What is their background? What is their experience? And if someone has earned a good, decent living, don't use that as a case. Use that as something that you can say, you know what, then I have something to learn from that person. But why do you want all to be poor? Why do you want all to be uneducated? I am educated, but my prayer, my hope is that the people of KEMBE, we break this level of illiteracy, which is so high and rampant. We break the early marriages because they are taking us backwards. And I speak from experience. I was married at the age of 18. I'm fortunate to even sit with you here. usually that would have been the end, you know. So I bring not only my experience, but also I'm saying, how could I be of help? And if each one of us as leaders, we're looking into what can I do for others, then how much can I gain? I've said, how many shoes can I wear? And I love shoes, by the way. I love clothes. But you begin to realize, as my son would say, Kulange, say, Mom, this is junk. It becomes junk. We're talking of people are dying. Did we see any one of them get the things they earned? We all leave it behind. So I think we need to get back to the, I don't want to say humanism, but I appreciated the lessons that we used to have, because it shaped us. People who have inspired me are people like Gandhi, people like Mandela, for example, and of course of recent, having spent much time in the US, is people like Martin Luther, who could have chosen to be with those who had it all, but they chose to be with the have-nots. And I think, to me, maybe it's my understanding or my ethos is shaped with my theology to some extent, but you don't have to be a theologian to understand that our offices are forever expiring. Our lives are forever expiring. But what will people remember you of? Because some of the friendship we even get along the way, they don't mean well.
Okay. I like how you've dodged the question of the high turnover of vice presidents.
I just skipped it. I can deal with that. I think it's important to understand that in a democracy, people are going to choose what they want to do. Okay?
And you feel that the high turnover of vice presidents in the UPND has been purely democratic?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't blame the president of UPND, Hakainde Hichilema, to be influencing or to be in any way being the reason, And what I will tell you, again, it's back to my point. Our politics are not mature. And people say, well, she's not even a mature politician herself. Well, I've been around for 5 years. I think I've matured. People say I'm no longer a Kasune, but a Musune. The truth is, there's too much politics of the belly in this country.
Even in the UPND?
Well, those who may leave, because what are you going to get in opposition? You have to fight for morals. You have to fight for its beliefs. It's the ideal. If you can't fight for what is right and you choose to feed yourself against the people, you're going to go. And I'm not saying that was the reason, but I'm just telling you, we need to mature as a country, including myself and all others, to a place of leadership where it's about convictions, where it is about doing what is right, what is good for the nation. And I'm not talking of personal life. I'm talking of what is good for the public, public good. And the truth is, and I think COVID-19 should teach us something, and Mandela spoke to this. He said, there will come a time when Africans can no longer run to a white man's country. Well, with COVID, how many countries have been bad to go from one place to another? So why can't we make our hospitals so good that you don't need to go to South Africa, you don't need to go to India? Why is that? Because the money you are spending in evacuating those that can afford, if only you built the right, not just building the right hospitals, because you may say, well, hospitals have been built, but not just in capital cities, in rural areas, where we can pay our workers right, where we can employ the health workers. We have a deficit in this country of health workers. We have a deficit in teachers. The recruitments that are happening in the defense systems, they are so paralyzed. A lot of young people, prior, I know the population was smaller, but those were some of the jobs where school leavers went to. But now you hear, well, only those they knew, only this and this. So my argument is, we as a country need to get a place where you are fighting for greater good. And it's not just for Princess. I tell the people of KEMBE, the Kembians, I said, if you leave it to me alone, I'll fail. We need to do it together. We need the women, we need the men, we need our young people. Because this is the only country we have. And let's stop celebrating people who are corrupt. Okay, I'm not saying I have to remain poor. No, that's not what I'm saying. But when you see that this lifestyle, these resources are so questionable, why are you worshiping those people?
Is that what's happening in this country?
Sorry?
Is that what is happening?
I think so. We have lost the moral compass. Okay, and I wish the president had spoken to this when he was talking about the values and the morals in this country. And he tried on other issues, but clearly we have lost it. There was a time where those who were patriotic to the country, okay, totally different from the party lines, to the country, allegiance to the flag of Zambia, that is huge. We are respected and honored versus this one is donating this. Why don't you say, where have they gotten that money from? And I'm not advocating for Karl Marx maybe way of life where everyone is just poor or in the same pool. I mean, even Jesus himself says the poor you always have. But why have we become so, I don't know the word, intoxicated with so much that we have become so fat, you know, with so much that we are neglecting the majority of this country. And I think it's also a responsibility to the ordinary Zambians to hold us accountable, because the human heart is deceitful. The human heart wants more and more. And now that this is an election year, ask, why is Kasune coming today, not all these years? Yeah. If I haven't been coming, why is it now money is being donated to the churches? Why is it now this person is moving with a sack of money? Zambians, let's do what is right.
Let's begin with you then.
Yes.
Lifestyle audits are something that have been called, you know, for to happen, especially with the people in government now. Would you mind telling us what your net worth is and what it was maybe in 2016? And we can then use that and say, okay, where has this money come from? Or, well, you've dropped. Where has it gone?
Not that I'll mention it publicly, but I made more money when I worked with World Vision. Okay, and the beauty was that no one knew. You know.
And therein lies the but, because nobody knows.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is, I mean, I was making about 70,000 US dollars a year. About, maybe 65.
Yeah.
Much of my expenses were paid for. Yes, I was in a different country, but that was a lot of money in hindsight. And sometimes they say you don't appreciate something until it's gone. Yeah. And I'm one of those people. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be a member of parliament, but it's also very taxing, especially if you have a heart like mine, where you hear this person, there's a funeral, you go. This person wants school fees, you go. And I think we haven't well defined the roles of a member of parliament. Because you see, people cannot see even the ministers, usually. They don't see them. Who do they see? The member of parliament. And this is not just for UPND, it's almost for all members of parliament. Maybe the men may get away with it, but I can see my female folks being overtaxed because we are compassionate people. So that is why I would say do not laugh at some of those members of parliament who may become poor after the tenure. And maybe this is why it also become a way of living, because the country has no jobs. That's the reality. The pool of youths who haven't found jobs is very high, and that's not healthy. You know, even countries like the US, the reason why they thrive a lot is their bottom, their waist is fat. You know, just like my waist, I have to tuck it in now. I'm 45. I'm like, oops, all the time. But that's what you want as a country. You want your middle class to be more. The poor, of course, like I've said, you always have. And the rich you will have. But the problem becomes when you're bottom, the poorest of the poor, you have a lot of extreme poverty in this country. I think the last time, is it national planning, gave us a workshop, and they were talking about the difference between poverty and extreme poverty. You will find that it's very much concentrated in rural areas. So what does that do? It also pushes the people in rural areas to come to the urban areas. And then there is a struggle in terms of finding jobs. There is a struggle even on land. I mean, the land policy in this country is pathetic. Look at how much land has gone to the foreigners. Now, I keep using the US because my husband now is from the US. When you talk of gentrification, which is a conversation we are not yet having in Zambia, it's not a big word. It is where those who have begin to push away those who do not have. It's happening in this country. And this is where the challenge lies. They say, you know what did I say? He who pays the piper commands the tune, right? The same way, whoever is going to have land, now land will never expand. It will forever be the same, what is the square meter of Zambia, whatever that is. But the population will keep what? Will keep increasing. Look at our forefathers and foremothers, however you call them, because I am very mindful that women were part of fighting for independence for this country, and we haven't given them all the credit that they are due, and they have to be talked about. They protected this land. There were forests that were protected. There were reserves, water reserves that were protected. But this greed that we have all become part of, where we are buying, we are degazetting land, the water table is being affected, foreigners are coming. Of course, they're going to have more money than you, so they are buying land, and you find that ordinary people are being pushed away, like they didn't even exist. People will say, this is where we lived with my ancestors. It no longer works. And that is why it's so critical that we have reforms in this country, because this is where we are caught in between. We still hold on to our values and our traditional way of life. Yet the world has also evolved. It's very much capitalist, whether we like it or not. And now we are almost in a confusion state, where a confused state, for lack of a better word, because you are caught in between. You are neither here nor there. And the most affected are people in rural areas.
Okay, so just to use the words or the phrase you've used, neither here nor there, my question was to the effect, what is your net worth? And what you've said in regards to that question is neither here nor there. And the reason why I insist on this is because you in the opposition are incessant on the people in government to tell us where they've gotten this money, tell us how come they have, you know, the ability to buy a helicopter that is worth so much, and yet you're not ready to, you know, come out yourselves.
You know what's the difference? You don't know the difference? Do I run a budget? I personally? Do I have a budget that I run?
Do you not have a budget that you run?
In terms of my office, no. Even the CDF you talk about is not run by your member of parliament.
But this is, you know, at individual level. You know how much money you have at individual level. And this helps then the people to know, because today I may have, and this is something that you in the opposition have talked about consistently. In 2015, the current president of Zambia was worth around, what, 2 million kwacha?
And you know what he's in charge of?
And in 2016, just a year later, 23 million kwacha. And there's an uproar. What are you worth right now?
So what I'm saying is, I am not in charge of the resources of this nation.
That is not the question, and that is not what we're discussing. I asked you a very specific question. What is your net worth?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I have resources enough that I came with.
You're telling me that you haven't done an audit of what you're worth?
Not really, but we do our reports at Parliament, which is public, I think. You write what you came with and what you earn. But here is the difference, Mr. Mbasela. Whether you know my net worth or not, I don't run the economy of this nation. When
I think you're missing the point.
No.
The point for the question
I am getting your point. I am getting your point.
The point for the question is this, if you allow me. The point for the question is this. If I know what you're worth, 5 years later, even a year later, as has been the case with the president, 2015, 2016, you will be able to
Come again,
question.
how much was he worth?
2 million.
When was that?
2015. 2016, 23 million. And then everybody, especially you, the UPN, say, where did he get this money? How could he, make himself wealthy this much in a single year? And that's the reason. If you yourselves are unwilling to tell us, why should you be the ones that are pulling out this speck in somebody else's eye and forgetting the plank in your own?
Okay, so you don't know the reason why? Or you don't know the difference?
You keep insisting on the difference.
No. It's a genuine question.
My question is as genuine as your response
and my
should be.
response is very genuine. No member of parliament, especially those in the backbench, ran any funds.
You go to parliament, you meet all these people, you
then
get
what?
exposed
Then what?
to some of these things. And maybe because of that, and this is where the question comes,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Maybe because of that, you get these links and you can get a project here and a project there. And a year later, you have so much more money. And I want to know that you're going to parliament not for the sake of enriching yourself, but to represent me.
Okay.
And that is why I want to question how much you're worth.
Let me go back to that. Listen, I am not running out from that conversation or the question you are asking. Here is one. It is very critical. And this is where I think Zambians, we are missing it. Sometimes we are asking the same questions to people who are actually in different positions, okay? Because you also, or not only members of parliament, other people in public spaces will be asked the same questions, and rightfully so. Yeah. Now, they have the responsibility to open up to that or not to open up. However, here is the difference, Mr. Mbasela. Kasune as I am. First of all, one, we do acknowledge our assets at parliament. However, here's the difference. I am not in the executive. I do not run any of the funds. And this is where the problem is. Even in now, there will be a high turnover of members of parliament because they're being crucified for something that has nothing to do with what the MP does. I just told you about the Landres Mumba Road. Guess who they are calling names for? It'll be me.
Yes.
Now, you are an educated man. Who is supposed to do roads in this country?
Government.
It's the government. So I think in all fairness...
Which by extension, you are a part of.
Yeah, but what is the role of the member of parliament?
To enact laws.
And to do what? To speak for the people.
Yes.
So I think for me, it's not necessarily dodging the question. I think we are overscattered in calling people who are not responsible for certain roles, and those are the people you're holding accountable for.
Unfortunately, my director says we have to go.
We need to come back. And by the way, you can find my network at parliament. So just you know. And when I come president, you may have to find out.
Yeah,
but
we will.
2 million to 25, that's a lot for someone in charge of the national resources.
Thank you very much for having taken the time to come to the furnace. I hope it was cool for you.
I like the seat.
Okay. Thank you for having watched the program, followed it online as well as on air. Remember to continue to follow us online as well as on air. Our handles on social media scrolling at the bottom of your screen. My name is Kasune Mbasela, and on behalf of my guest this evening, Honorable Princess Kasune, Member of Parliament for KEMBE under the UPND. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You made it hard. You know what?